One message took my rate from 120 euros to 280 euros for the exact same show. I spent 4 years playing piano bars on cruise ships, in front of hundreds of people across 3 different cruise lines. When I came back on land and started booking gigs in Lyon, I found myself doing something I never had to do on cruise ships, setting my own price. Earlier this year, a venue asked me back for a second date, and I decided to test something. Instead of quietly accepting what they offered me again, I sent one message asking for more, and I told them exactly why my rate made sense. What happened next changed how I think about every gig I booked now. And if you're a musician charging for your own time right now, whether that is ships, weddings, hotel bars, or a random Friday at your local pub, this applies to you too. So you might be wondering, what did this one message actually say that I sent to the organizer? So after I performed for the first time in that venue, by the way, that was a bar/restaurant that was inside a hotel, but that also was a standalone restaurant with live music. I decided to do this first date for a lower pay because I wanted to show what I was capable of, and because I didn't have that many offers in Lyon yet. I was quite new to the area. I decided to just take this as a test to see how I was even feeling about performing again after a long break, and to first show my value and then decide whether I wanted to play there again. And if that was the case, I knew deep down that I would probably try and negotiate a little bit higher. So this first gig went really well. I got everyone singing along. I took some nice videos. I even got the bar staff telling me how amazing I had been doing on that day. And I truly felt like I was successful for that first gig. Not even a couple of days later, the booker sent me a message saying thank you and saying that I did really well and everyone enjoyed my performance, and he offered me multiple dates for the rest of the year. I was really excited, thinking that I did really well, and now was the time for me to try and ask some more money, because I couldn't see myself performing for just like $100. You know, even if it's not very far from where I live and it's a beautiful venue that I really enjoyed, I really wanted to make sure that I'm going to be paid okay-ish, so that it motivates me to go there and I don't feel resentment for being paid so low, knowing that I also have these 4 years of international experience, and that the environment I was playing in and the environment of this restaurant, of this venue, is exactly what I know how to do. So I had a sense of knowing my own worth, and I went in trying to negotiate and get a higher fee. So what the message actually said was thanking him for the feedback and also restating my own value, what I brought specifically to that gig. I got the audience involved. I picked the right songs for the audience. I adapted to the live environment. I even played some of the songs that people in the audience asked me about. And I created an atmosphere that was really enjoyed by most of the people working there, but also the guests. I didn't just send a generic thanks for the feedback. I really tried to restate the worth and the value that I have been bringing to that specific day. The second thing I did was to lead with my experience. So not just to like throw my CV at him, but just reminding him about my experience working on cruise ships, and also talking about the fact that I even performed in front of over 500 people in a theater once. And by doing this, I really restated how lucky this venue was to actually have me. That was the good solid ground for me to bring the next thing, which is the negotiation. Once I restated my experience, I didn't even state a number. I asked for what was possible, if there was any room for negotiation about the salary. And because I had stated not only that I did really well on my first gig, but also that I had lots of experience, it kind of made sense for him to actually reply to me with a positive response, unless there was really no budget. So what happened after is that the booker responded to me asking me what is my suggestion in terms of salary. And this was the moment I knew it might be smart to actually say a number. Looking back, I think I shouldn't have said any number at this moment, because it's always better, and I understood this later through having lots of conversations with bookers and organizers of events. It's always better to not state the number first, but to get the other person in front of you to actually do it, because then you can adapt to whatever they're seeing in their mind, and you can ask for more or for less depending on what you had in mind. But the first person who states a number is always the one that is not in the best position. So I would really recommend, and if I had to give myself some advice a couple of months back, I would say, hey, don't give your number, just say, okay, because I'm new to the Lyon scene, I would really appreciate it if you could tell me a little bit how much you actually pay artists, because you have experience booking artists, etc. However, I still did send the message, and I asked for 280 euros, which was over double what I had been paid for the first gig. And the reason why I gave this number, for me, that was a big number at the time, because I didn't really have any residencies or gigs in Lyon, and I didn't know anything about what was possible. And even though I was paid quite well on cruise ships, for me, getting paid on land was a completely different thing. So I had no idea what was high, what was low, and what I was worth on the market in France. What happened when I said that is that the booker said yes straight away. And this is when I understood my mistake, that I should maybe have asked for a little bit more, or just asking him first to state a number so that I can later adapt. Now, why is it that the client, so in this case the booker, why did they not try to push the rate down or to negotiate? And my interpretation of the answer is that I stated the reason why I wanted to get a higher salary. I stated my own experience, and I stated the first experience, the first test we did on that gig, so that I was able to show off my value in real time, and it was not just like a CV or stated experience that I was giving them, but actually a real confirmed moment in time where I got their audience, their venue to actually feel super happy and to have a really good moment when I was performing there. The second thing why it probably worked is that I really incurred this amount as my usual rate. Even if I was not 100% confident about it, I still said that this is what I was paid for, and so it seemed to him as a normal thing to ask for. Now, of course, as I said, instant acceptance, like if you're in negotiation and that you get someone to accept your rate straight away, is probably that you could have asked for more, because if it was a bit of a stretch, they would have negotiated. Now, the problem is that most musicians undercharge because they don't really know the benchmarks. They don't know about how to communicate with agents or bookers, whether it's in the cruise ship industry or in the music venues industry on land. And so if you're a musician trying to make a good living from music, whether it's on cruise ships or on land, I would really recommend you to send me an email and to explain your situation, explain your goals, so that I can point you to the best resources, whether they are free or whether it's my paid course or consultation, so that we can get you moving forward and start getting paid the way you deserve as a musician. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually know if you're undercharging or overcharging, depending on your experience and the kind of gigs you're getting? And for this, I'm going to give you a benchmark of, from my experience, what it is that you can ask for a music gig. Let's assume that you're a solo performer, because of course the rate will depend on the length and the experience that you have, but also how many of you is it that you're playing. Is it a duo, trio, or band? But most importantly, it will depend on the type of event that you are applying for. And so at the very bottom, I would say that there are local bars that charge not much at all. I see some musicians here in Lyon playing for free or for 20 or 50 euros maximum, or sometimes they just get food or sometimes a couple of beers, and that's how they get paid for the night. And by the way, I sometimes feel a little bit mad, because I'm like, if there are so many musicians willing to pay for free or for such a low pay, it's probably the reason why some of us musicians who want to get really well paid, who want to get those premium gigs, kind of struggle, because there are so many musicians willing to pay for free that how much musicians are paid in total is obviously brought down. Local bars can also pay up to like 100 or 200 euros per night, but I wouldn't say that's more than that. Even 200 euros would be the higher end for this in my experience. Now, if we're looking at hotels or live music venues that might have a little bit more budget, because that's something they usually have, so maybe they have a stage or they are like a premium venue, like a 5-star venue. I actually have a residency in a 5-star hotel in Lyon, and I would say that the average is between 200 to 400 euros per night. you'll be surprised to see that even it's a really premium venue, like a 5 stars hotel, a lot of the time they don't have that much budget, and I haven't seen anywhere, whether in Lyon or even anywhere else in France when I did some outreach, hotel that offered me more than between 300 to 500 euros per night. That's usually the maximum they can give, and a lot of the time it is 100 or 200 euros, and that for me is crazy because I tend to think, hey, they must have so much money, but as musicians this is not the best places we can get into. For example, I got in touch with an agent who offered me a residency in a premium luxury hotel in a ski resort in France, not far from where I am, and he was telling me that the average is 100 or 200 per day, and that I'd never be able to get more than 200 or 300 euros per day. And that really surprised me because I was like, wow, like people come from like all over the world to these ski stations here in France. They're super premium, super luxury hotels, and still they will only pay 100 or 200 euros per night for a musician who performs there. Now, I'm not going to talk about all different kind of events where you can play as a musician, but as soon as you're starting to think about kind of weddings or corporate events, sometimes even sports events, where you're going to be setting your own price and sometimes getting booked straight away with the client or getting through an agency, you can expect much higher rates if you're able to negotiate, if you're able to position yourself right. And for these kind of gigs, I've been offered between 500 to 1,000 euros. And I also know that if I position myself as a wedding piano vocalist, for example, I can expect up to 5 or even sometimes 10,000 euros just for a gig. Of course, that takes time to build. But I was in touch with an agency the other day who was telling me that they have piano vocalists from 400 euros to 8,000 euros because they know how to position themselves as premium acts. So all of this to say that it is possible, and depending on where you play, you can get paid peanuts, 0 or sometimes 50 or 100 euros, and you can get paid up to 8,000 euros. And if you want a little secret, is that it is my goal to get paid the most amount of money I can as a musician, because I don't want to believe that we have to be broke as musicians. I was quite well paid on cruise ships. I was saving quite a lot of money, and I'm really expecting, now that I'm back to my music career on land, to get really good money. I also have a real business brain that I really enjoy using, here helping musicians and, in everything I do online with the course, etc. But also I want to get this business brain to feel active in my performing career and to really target the right environments that can pay me the salary I deserve, and to learn how to position myself so that I can target these kind of clients. So I know this channel is mainly about working on cruise ships as a musician, and sometimes we're talking about different things like how to get gigs as a musician on land, because I know not everyone wants to go on cruise ships and not everyone is able to. But I think this channel can also be about how can we get really well paid as a musician and make sure that we're making a good living doing what we love and not overworking. So if that's something you're trying to build where you are, to get better paying gigs, and that you'd like help doing this, feel free to book a call with me down below. I do 45 minutes consultations, and I'd love to get to know your story and to help you in your music goals. So the key takeaway of this video is that if you are not asking for more, you might never get it. And I see so many musicians who never ever get paid for the music, or who always get paid like 200 euros per night because that's all they asked for. And the truth is that I got even really uncomfortable even in the past couple of days when I get in touch with agents, because I'm stating a price that's way higher than the price they had in mind. And sometimes you just have to get into this uncomfortable phase so that you can understand the market that you have around you. And it's not an easy thing to do yourself, but I would really recommend that you take that first step. And if you're also a musician who wants to make a really good living out of performing music, whether it's on cruise ships or on land, feel free to let me know that you're here down below, that you watched until the end. Feel free to subscribe to the channel as well, as I post twice weekly, and to hit the notification bell so you can stay updated whenever I post something. And other than that, I really thank you for being here until the end, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.